The airport buzzed with the usual chaos of summer travel. I clutched my carry-on bag, trying to keep up with Isaac and his family as they weaved through the crowd. At 58, I wasn't as nimble as I once was, but I'd always prided myself on keeping pace. "Mom, you're falling behind again," Isaac called over his shoulder, irritation lacing his voice. His wife, Jennifer, shot me a look that barely masked her impatience. "Sorry," I murmured, quickening my steps despite the twinge in my knee. An old injury from years ago when I'd worked double shifts at the hospital to pay for Isaac's college tuition. We reached the check-in counter, and I handed Isaac the confirmation number for our reservations. I'd spent months planning this trip to California, a family vacation to celebrate my retirement after 30 years of nursing. The trip I'd always promised myself once Isaac was settled and I could finally indulge a little. "IDs, please," the attendant requested, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Isaac handled everything, as he always insisted on doing these days. At 35, my son had grown into a confident, successful man. Too confident sometimes. I watched as he exchanged pleasantries with the attendant, his charm on full display. When the attendant finished, Isaac turned to me, holding out a boarding pass. "Here, Mom," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "You're in 32F. I frowned. "But we're all sitting together, right?" A flicker of discomfort crossed his face. "Actually, we thought it would be better if we spread out a bit. Jennifer and I have the kids in row 12. "Row 12. I repeated, confusion washing over me. "But that's 20 rows ahead." Isaac sighed, glancing at Jennifer, who was pretending to adjust their daughter Emma's backpack. "Look, Mom, it's a 5-hour flight. You know how Emma gets restless, and Jennifer's been stressed about this presentation she's preparing for work. You'll be fine in the back. This way everyone gets to rest." The words hit me like a physical blow. Everyone gets to rest. From me. I was the thing they needed rest from. I felt my face flush with hurt and embarrassment. The executive class tickets were tucked safely in my purse. My surprise for them, purchased with the small inheritance I'd received when my sister passed last year. I'd planned to reveal them at the gate, imagining their delighted faces when they realized we'd be traveling in comfort. "I see," was all I managed to say, my voice smaller than I intended. "It's just a seating arrangement, Mom," Isaac said with practiced patience. "Don't make it into a big deal." I nodded mechanically, watching as he rejoined Jennifer and the children. My grandchildren, 7-year-old Emma and 4-year-old Liam, were absorbed in their tablets, barely acknowledging my presence. As we made our way to security, I fell behind again, this time deliberately. I opened my purse and looked at the executive class tickets I'd purchased weeks ago. San Francisco to Los Angeles executive class adjacent seats. A small luxury I'd been so excited to share with them. The security line inched forward. Ahead, I watched Isaac lift Liam onto his shoulders, the boy's delighted giggle carrying back to me. Jennifer leaned in to say something, and they all laughed together. A perfect family portrait that somehow didn't include me. I thought about speaking up, about pulling out the executive class tickets and showing Isaac what I'd planned. But something stopped me. A small hard knot of dignity that had started to form in my chest. Maybe it was time I stopped trying so hard to be included in a picture where I was clearly seen as an intrusion. "Next," the TSA agent called, and I stepped forward, the boarding pass for seat 32F clutched in my hand and the executive class ticket still hidden in my purse. As I removed my shoes and placed my belongings on the conveyor belt, I made a decision. I wouldn't reveal the tickets. Not yet. Perhaps not at all. For once, I would watch and wait, instead of rushing in to smooth things over as I'd always done. By the time I cleared security, Isaac and his family were already halfway to the gate, not once looking back to see if I was still behind them. The plane engines hummed steadily as I settled into seat 32F, wedged against the window with a view of the wing. A large man with an equally large duffel bag took the middle seat, immediately claiming both armrests. I made myself smaller, a skill I'd perfected over recent years. From my vantage point, I could just make out the back of Isaac's head 20 rows ahead. Jennifer sat beside him, her sleek blonde hair falling perfectly as she leaned toward him. The children were across the aisle, Emma already engrossed in a movie on the seatback screen. The flight attendant's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing our departure time. I closed my eyes, allowing myself to drift back to a different time. 28 years ago. Mommy, look. 5-year-old Isaac pressed his small face against the airport window, eyes wide with wonder as a plane taxied past. It's so big. I knelt beside him, wrapping my arm around his tiny shoulders. Yes, it is. And one day when Mommy saves enough money, we'll go on a plane together. Would you like that? He turned to me, face alight with excitement. Just you and me? Just you and me. I promised, heart swelling with love for this little boy who'd become my entire world after Robert died. My nursing salary barely covered our basic needs, but somehow I'd make that trip happen for him. Isaac threw his arms around my neck. You're the best mommy ever. 15 years ago. Mom, I got in. 20-year-old Isaac burst through the front door, waving an acceptance letter. UCLA wants me. Full ride. I dropped the laundry basket I'd been carrying, rushing to embrace him. I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you. That night, after Isaac went out to celebrate with friends, I sat at the kitchen table with our bills spread before me. The second mortgage I'd taken out to pay for Isaac's prep courses and application fees had stretched our budget to the breaking point. I'd have to pick up weekend shifts at the eldercare facility to make ends meet. But seeing the joy on my son's face made every sacrifice worthwhile. My boy was going to college, something neither Robert nor I had managed to do. 7 years ago. Mom, I'd like you to meet Jennifer. Isaac's voice was filled with a new kind of happiness as he introduced the stylish woman beside him. It's wonderful to meet you, I said warmly, although Jennifer's smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she glanced around my modest living room. Later, after they left, I found myself straightening cushions and apologizing for my quaint home as if Jennifer could still hear me. Isaac had changed since meeting her. Subtle shifts in how he dressed, talked, even how he regarded me. The changes accelerated after their wedding. The Sunday dinners at my house dwindled, then stopped entirely. When Emma was born, my offers to help were politely declined. Jennifer's mother is staying with us, Isaac explained. Maybe next time. Next time rarely came. The plane jostled, pulling me back to the present as we hit a patch of turbulence. The man beside me shifted, his elbow digging into my side. I didn't protest. Through the small gap between seats, I caught a glimpse of the first-class cabin where I'd planned for us to sit. The attendants were serving pre-flight drinks in real glasses. The executive class tickets had cost most of my inheritance. $700 for 5 round-trip tickets. A once-in-a-lifetime splurge to create memories with my family. My throat tightened as I watched a flight attendant bend down to speak with Liam, ruffling his hair playfully. From this distance, they looked like any other happy family. No sign of the grandmother relegated to the back of the plane. The captain announced our final descent into San Francisco. I hadn't even noticed the flight passing, lost as I was in memories and regrets. As passengers began to disembark, I waited, allowing everyone in my row to go ahead. By the time I reached the front of the plane, Isaac and his family were already gone. I found them in the baggage claim area, Isaac checking his watch impatiently. There you are, he said, not bothering to hide his irritation. We've been waiting. I wanted to point out that they hadn't waited for me to exit the plane, but instead I apologized. Again. Sorry. It takes longer to get out from the back. Jennifer checked her phone, barely acknowledging me. The rental car shuttle leaves in 5 minutes. We should hurry. As Isaac hoisted the bags onto a cart, I noticed Emma looking at me curiously. Grandma, why weren't you sitting with us on the plane? Before I could answer, Jennifer cut in smoothly. Grandma needed her space, sweetie. Just like you need yours sometimes. Emma seemed to accept this explanation, but something in her innocent question broke through the protective numbness I'd wrapped around myself during the flight. I watched my son, my beautiful boy whom I'd raised alone, for whom I'd sacrificed everything, efficiently organizing our departure without once asking if I was comfortable, if I'd had a good flight, if I needed anything. The executive class ticket still sat in my purse, a painful reminder of how invisible I'd become to my own family. Karen, Isaac called sharply. Are you coming or not? The shuttle won't wait. I nodded and followed them outside, my carry-on suddenly feeling much heavier than before. The rental car wound its way up the coastal highway, revealing breathtaking views of the Pacific Ocean. Under different circumstances, I would have been entranced by the scenery. Instead, I sat silently in the back seat beside Liam's car seat, watching my grandson drift off to sleep. The resort should be just ahead, Isaac announced from the driver's seat, one hand resting casually on the steering wheel. Jennifer checked something on her phone, her manicured nails tapping against the screen. "Did you confirm the reservation?" she asked, not looking up. "Mom handled it," Isaac replied, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "You did confirm, right?" "Yes," I answered quietly. "Everything's arranged." What Isaac didn't know was exactly what I had arranged. After the humiliation at the airport, I'd made a decision during the flight. A small rebellion perhaps, but one I needed for my own dignity. The car crested a hill, and the Ocean View Resort came into view. A sprawling complex of elegant buildings perched on the cliffs overlooking the sea. I'd researched for weeks to find the perfect place, somewhere special enough to justify spending the remainder of my inheritance. At the reception desk, the attendant greeted us warmly. "Welcome to Ocean View. Name please." "Walters," Isaac said confidently. "Isaac Walters." The woman typed something into her computer, then frowned slightly. "I'm sorry, I don't see a reservation under that name." Isaac turned to me with an accusatory look. "Mom? I thought you said everything was confirmed." "Try looking under Karen Bennett," I suggested calmly. Bennett was my maiden name, which I'd reclaimed after Robert died. The receptionist brightened. "Ah yes, here it is. The luxury Ocean View suite for Ms. Bennett, and the Garden View double for the Walter family. Both for 5 nights. I watched the confusion spread across Isaac's face. There must be some mistake. We should all be in the same suite. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. "I'm showing 2 separate reservations. The Ocean View suite is a single occupancy booking." Jennifer's perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together. "Karen, what's going on?" I took a deep breath. "I decided to get my own room." "Your own room?" Isaac repeated incredulously. "Why would you do that without telling us?" "I thought." My voice faltered slightly before I steadied it. "I thought everyone might appreciate some space. So everyone can rest properly." Recognition flickered in Isaac's eyes as I echoed his words from the airport. A flush crept up his neck. "That's unnecessary," he said stiffly. "Actually," I continued, summoning courage I hadn't known I possessed, "there's more. I've arranged for your family to have access to the resort's premium amenities, the spa, private beach area, and children's adventure club. I've already paid for everything." Jennifer's expression shifted subtly. "That's very generous." "I wanted this to be special," I said simply. The receptionist handed us our respective key cards, and a bellhop appeared to take our luggage. As we walked toward the elevators, Emma tugged at her father's hand. "Why isn't Grandma staying with us?" she asked loudly. Isaac cleared his throat. "Grandma wants her own room, honey." "But why?" Emma persisted. "Because grown-ups sometimes need their privacy," Jennifer interjected smoothly. Liam, now awake, looked up at me with sleepy eyes. "I want to stay with Grandma." Jennifer's smile tightened. "Don't be silly, Liam. You're staying with Mommy and Daddy." We reached the 3rd floor, where the Garden View rooms were located. The elevator stopped, and Isaac hesitated before stepping out. "We'll meet for dinner at 6? He suggested, his tone somewhere between a question and a command. I nodded. "I'll see you then." The doors closed, leaving me alone as the elevator continued to the top floor. When they opened again, a breathtaking view of the ocean greeted me through floor-to-ceiling windows. The bellhop led me to my suite, a spacious, beautifully appointed room with a private balcony overlooking the water. After he left, I stood in the center of the room, suddenly overwhelmed by the silence. For the first time in decades, I put myself first, chosen comfort for myself instead of sacrificing for others. The feeling was foreign, almost uncomfortable. I stepped onto the balcony, letting the ocean breeze wash over me. 3 floors below, I could see Isaac and his family settling into their Garden View patio. Jennifer appeared to be complaining about something, gesturing emphatically while Isaac nodded. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. The scene was familiar enough. Jennifer dissatisfied, Isaac attempting to placate her, the children caught somewhere in the middle. And me, always on the periphery, expected to help but never to impose. But not this time. This time I had the prime view, the private suite, the space to breathe. A small victory, perhaps even a petty one. But as I watched the waves crash against the rocks below, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, a quiet sense of power. Dinner that evening was a tense affair. I arrived at the resort seafood restaurant to find Isaac, Jennifer, and the children already seated at a table near the window. "You're late," Jennifer remarked, checking her watch pointedly. "Sorry," I said automatically, though I was only 5 minutes past the agreed time. The view from my room was so beautiful, I lost track of time. Liam's face lit up. "Can I see your room, Grandma?" Before I could answer, Jennifer cut in. "Not tonight, sweetie. It's almost your bedtime after dinner." I settled into my chair, noticing how Isaac avoided my eyes. The waiter appeared with menus, and conversation halted as we made our selections. Emma wanted chicken fingers instead of seafood, prompting a hushed argument between her and Jennifer about trying new things. "How's your suite?" Isaac finally asked, breaking the strained silence between us. "It's lovely," I replied. "The balcony overlooks the entire coastline." "Sounds nice," he said flatly. I took a sip of water, gathering courage. "Isaac, about the room arrangements." "Let's not do this here," he interrupted, glancing meaningfully at the children. The meal progressed in uncomfortable spurts of conversation. I asked Emma about school and Liam about his dinosaur collection, grateful for my grandchildren's easy chatter. Jennifer maintained a cool politeness, while Isaac remained unusually quiet. After dessert, Jennifer announced she would take the children back to their room. "They're exhausted from traveling," she explained. "Isaac, are you coming?" "I'll be up shortly," he replied. "I want to talk to Mom for a minute." Jennifer's lips thinned slightly, but she nodded and ushered the children away. Emma gave me a quick hug goodbye, while Liam clung to my leg until Jennifer peeled him away. Once they were gone, Isaac leaned forward, his expression serious. "What's going on, Mom?" "First the seating arrangement on the plane, and now this room situation. If you're upset about something, just say it." I folded my napkin carefully, buying myself a moment. "I'm not upset. I'm just following your lead." "What's that supposed to mean?" "At the airport," I said quietly, "you made it clear that having some distance from me would be restful for everyone. I'm simply extending that courtesy." Isaac's face flushed. "That was just about the flight. You're twisting my words." "Am I?" I met his gaze directly. "Isaac, when was the last time you called me just to check in? Or brought the kids over without me specifically asking? When was the last time you asked about my life instead of just expecting me to fit into yours when convenient?" He looked taken aback. "That's not fair. We're busy. Jennifer's job is demanding, and with the kids." "I understand busy," I interrupted gently. "I raised you alone while working full-time and taking night shifts. I never missed a soccer game or school play." "That was different," he muttered. "Yes, it was," I agreed. "Because you were my priority." A flash of something, guilt perhaps, crossed his face before his expression hardened. "So this is what, then? Some kind of payback?" I shook my head, suddenly tired. "No, Isaac. It's self-preservation." From my purse, I withdrew the executive-class airline tickets I'd purchased, placing them on the table between us. "What are these?" he asked, picking them up. "The tickets I originally bought for our trip. Executive class, all 5 of us sitting together." He stared at them, then at me. "I don't understand." "It was supposed to be a surprise," I explained. "A special treat for all of us." "Then why didn't you say anything at the airport?" I looked out at the darkening ocean. "Because when you handed me that economy ticket and told me to sit in the back, I realized something. I've spent my entire life making room for everyone else, and somewhere along the way, I became invisible to my own family." Isaac's face crumpled slightly. "Mom, that's not true." "Isn't it?" My voice remained calm, though my heart was racing. "Tell me, did you or Jennifer even consider how I might feel, sitting alone on a 5-hour flight while you all enjoyed each other's company?" He had no answer. "I don't need grand gestures, Isaac. I just need to be treated with basic consideration. To not be an afterthought or a burden." "You're not a burden," he protested, but there was a hollowness to his words. Then why do I feel like one whenever I'm around you and Jennifer? I asked softly. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at me apologetically. It's Jennifer. Liam won't go to sleep. He's asking for you. The irony wasn't lost on me. You should go, I said. He hesitated, clearly torn between his wife's summons and our unfinished conversation. We're not done talking about this. No, I agreed. We're not. After he left, I remained at the table, watching the moonlight dance across the waves. The confrontation had left me drained but oddly lighter, as if a weight had been lifted after years of silence. I thought about the executive class tickets still sitting on the table, physical evidence of my invisible efforts, of love that had become one-sided. I gathered them up and slipped them back into my purse. As I walked through the resort toward my suite, my phone rang. It was Emma. Grandma, she whispered. Liam's really upset. Can you come tell us a story? Please. Something in her small voice broke through my exhaustion. I'll be right there, sweetheart. When I arrived at their room, Jennifer opened the door with visible relief. Thank goodness. He's been inconsolable. I found Liam curled up in his bed, tears streaking his cheeks. His face brightened when he saw me. Grandma, you came. I sat on the edge of his bed, and Emma quickly clambered up beside us. Of course I came. I'll always come when you need me. As I began their favorite story, I noticed Isaac watching from the doorway, his expression unreadable. Our eyes met over the children's heads, and in that moment something shifted between us, a question forming in the space where certainty had once been. Morning light filtered through the curtains of my suite as I sat on the balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the ocean. After last night's confrontation with Isaac, I'd slept restlessly, replaying our conversation and wondering if I'd gone too far. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. When I opened the door, I was surprised to find Liam and Emma standing there alone, still in their pajamas. Grandma! Liam launched himself at my legs. Daddy said we could have breakfast with you. Emma, more reserved at 7, looked up at me. Is that okay? Mom and Dad are fighting. I ushered them inside, concern mixing with a strange sense of vindication. Of course it's okay. Have they been fighting a lot? Emma shrugged, climbing onto one of the plush chairs. Mostly when they think we can't hear. Mom got really mad last night after you left. I called room service for breakfast, ordering pancakes for the children and more coffee for myself. As we waited, I showed them the view from my balcony, Liam's eyes widening at the sight of dolphins playing in the distance. Your room is way better than ours, Emma observed. Our window just looks at some bushes. I smiled but felt a pang of guilt. Perhaps using the room arrangements to make a point had been unfair to the children. After breakfast arrived, and the kids were happily devouring pancakes, my phone buzzed with a text from Isaac. Taking Jennifer for a walk to talk. Thanks for watching the kids. Need to sort some things out. I set the phone down, unsure what to make of this development. Was he actually reflecting on our conversation, or just managing another of Jennifer's moods? Grandma, can we go to the beach today? Liam asked, maple syrup dripping down his chin. If your parents say it's okay, I replied, wiping his face with a napkin. Emma looked thoughtful. Yesterday, I heard Mom tell Dad that she doesn't want to do kid stuff on this vacation. She wants to go to the spa. This didn't surprise me. Jennifer had always been more interested in appearances than experiences. I'd noticed how she posed her family for perfect social media photos, but rarely engaged fully in the moments themselves. Well, I said carefully, maybe we could do something special, just the three of us. The children's enthusiastic response warmed something inside me that had been cold for too long. An hour later, Isaac texted again. Jennifer's going to the spa for the day. Okay, if you take the kids to the beach? I need to make some calls for work. Work calls on vacation. Another non-surprise. I replied that I'd be happy to take the children, deliberately not acknowledging the irony that they now needed the grandmother they'd so casually dismissed. We spent the morning building sandcastles and collecting shells. Emma, usually so concerned with mimicking her mother's reserved demeanor, laughed freely as waves chased her up the beach. Liam insisted on holding my hand as we waded into the shallow water. His trust simple and complete. Grandma, he asked, watching a seagull dive into the waves. Why don't you live with us? Megan's grandma lives at her house. The innocent question caught me off guard. Well, sweetie, I have my own house. And grown-ups usually like having their own space. But don't you get lonely? Emma asked, suddenly serious. Dad says that's why you're always calling us and wanting to visit. My heart clenched. Is that how Isaac explained my desire to be part of their lives? As neediness? I miss you when we're apart, I admitted. But that doesn't mean I'm lonely. I have friends and my garden and my book club. Emma seemed to consider this. Dad says we're your whole world. I looked out at the vast ocean, thinking carefully about my response. You're a very important part of my world, I said finally. But no one should make another person their whole world. That's too much pressure for everyone. By mid-afternoon, the children were tired, and we returned to the resort. I was bringing them back to their room when we ran into Isaac in the lobby. He looked drained, the skin around his eyes tight with stress. Did you have fun? He asked the children, who immediately launched into excited recountings of their beach adventures. Thanks for taking them, he said to me quietly. Jennifer and we had some things to discuss. I nodded, not prying. They're wonderful children, Isaac. They just need time and attention. Something in his expression shifted. You've always been good at that part. It's not a special talent, I replied gently. It's a choice. He flinched slightly, and I wondered if my words had hit too close to home. But instead of growing defensive, he surprised me by asking, would you join us for dinner tonight? Not at the restaurant. I thought we could get room service in our suite. More relaxed for the kids. The olive branch was small but significant. I'd like that, I said. As I walked back to my suite to freshen up, I realized I felt different, lighter somehow. The hurt wasn't gone, but it had transformed into something more manageable. For years, I'd defined myself solely as Isaac's mother, and later as Emma and Liam's grandmother. In trying to hold on to those roles, I'd accepted being diminished. But standing up for myself hadn't resulted in losing my family, as I'd feared. Instead, it seemed to be creating space for a new kind of relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than mere obligation. I wasn't naive enough to believe one vacation could fix years of established patterns. Jennifer's coldness wouldn't thaw overnight, and Isaac's awareness was just beginning. But it was a start. As I changed for dinner, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. A woman I barely recognized. She looked stronger, more dignified than the apologetic figure who had boarded that plane just days ago. For the first time in years, I was curious to know her better. The remaining days of our vacation settled into an unexpected rhythm. Jennifer spent most of her time at the spa or by the adults-only pool, while Isaac divided himself between work calls and family activities. I found myself primarily with the children, rediscovering the joy of being truly present without constantly seeking approval. On our final evening, Isaac suggested we all take a sunset walk along the beach. To my surprise, Jennifer agreed without protest. As we strolled along the shore, Liam ran ahead chasing seagulls, while Emma collected one last set of shells for her growing collection. Mom, Isaac said, falling into step beside me while Jennifer walked a few paces ahead. I've been doing some thinking. I looked at him, noting the uncharacteristic uncertainty in his expression. About what? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. A gesture so reminiscent of his father that my heart squeezed. About how we've been treating you. How I've been treating you. I remained silent, giving him space to continue. When Dad died, you became everything to me: mother, father, provider, cheerleader. You never complained, never put your needs first. He paused, watching Liam splash in the shallow waves. I think I got used to that. Expected it. It was my choice, I said softly. I wanted to give you everything. I know. But somewhere along the line, I stopped seeing the cost to you. He glanced toward Jennifer, lowering his voice slightly. And I let Jennifer's preferences dictate our family dynamics without question. The admission hung between us as the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand. When you showed me those executive class tickets, he continued, I felt ashamed. Not just because of what happened at the airport, but because I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something thoughtful for you. I touched his arm lightly. Isaac, I don't need grand gestures. That's just it, Mom. You never ask for anything, so it became easy to give you nothing. His voice roughened. Too easy. Before I could respond, Jennifer called us over to take a family photo as the sun set behind us. A family photo that, for the first time in years, genuinely included me. That night, I packed my suitcase meticulously, placing the unused executive class tickets in the inner pocket. They represented something important now. Not just a rejected gift, but a moment of awakening. The next morning, we gathered in the lobby to check out. I joined the line behind Isaac, who was settling the bill for their room. I've added our spa charges and the Children's Adventure Club to our account, he told the clerk, then turned to me. Mom, Jennifer and I want to cover your room charges too. That's not necessary, I began, but he cut me off gently. Please, let us do this. I nodded, recognizing the gesture for what it was. A small step toward rebalancing our relationship. At the airport, we moved through security together, Isaac deliberately slowing his pace to match mine. When we reached the gate, he handed out our boarding passes. I looked down at mine, noting the seat assignment. 12E in the row with Isaac and his family. We're all sitting together this time, he said, watching my reaction carefully. I felt a lump form in my throat. Thank you. As we waited to board, I excused myself to use the restroom. When I returned, I noticed Isaac and Jennifer in what appeared to be a tense discussion. They fell silent as I approached. Everything okay? I asked. Jennifer's smile was tight. Fine. Just discussing some logistics. The boarding announcement interrupted any further conversation. As we lined up, I found myself behind Jennifer, who was scrolling through her phone with sharp, agitated movements. Once on the plane, I settled into my middle seat, with Isaac on the aisle and Jennifer by the window. The children sat across from us, already absorbed in their tablets. I have something for you, I said to Isaac, reaching into my purse. I pulled out an envelope and handed it to him. He opened it, confused. Mom, these are the executive class tickets for your return trip, I explained. I called the airline and had them transferred to your names. But there are only 3, he noted, glancing at the documents. Yes. 1 for you, 1 for Jennifer, and 1 for me. The children's tickets remain in economy, where they'll be supervised by the airline's junior traveler program. Jennifer looked up sharply. You're putting our children in economy alone? Not alone, I corrected calmly. The program provides staff to supervise children during the flight. I've already arranged everything. But, she began. It's for the best, I said, echoing Isaac's words from our outbound journey. This way the adults can rest. The children will be fine. Isaac stared at me, recognition dawning in his eyes. Mom, you don't have to do this. I know. I smiled, a genuine smile that came from a place of newfound strength. But I want you to understand something. From now on, things will be different between us. Different how? Jennifer asked warily. I'll always be there for you and the children, I said, looking directly at her. But not at the cost of my own dignity. Not anymore. The flight attendant approached, checking our boarding passes. Miss Bennett? There seems to be a seating issue. I stood, gathering my belongings. No issue. I'm changing seats. Isaac caught my arm. Mom, please stay. We want you here. I patted his hand gently. I've made my choice, Isaac. You're welcome to join me in executive class, but I understand if you need to stay with Jennifer. I followed the attendant toward the front of the plane, feeling lighter with each step. At the entrance to executive class, I paused, looking back. Isaac was watching me, his expression torn between confusion and something else, perhaps respect. The attendant showed me to my seat, a luxurious single pod with ample legroom and privacy. As I settled in, I closed my eyes briefly, allowing myself to enjoy the moment. This wasn't about revenge or teaching a lesson. It was about reclaiming something essential that I'd surrendered years ago without even realizing it. My sense of self-worth. The plane began taxiing down the runway. Through the window, I watched California recede beneath us, the shoreline where we'd walked together growing smaller until it disappeared altogether. I didn't know what awaited me at home. Whether Isaac would follow through on his newfound awareness, whether Jennifer would adjust to the redrawn boundaries, whether things would truly change. But for the first time in decades, the uncertainty didn't frighten me. Whatever happened, I would face it as Karen Bennett, a woman who had finally learned that loving her family didn't mean disappearing within it. As the plane climbed higher into the clouds, I reclined my seat and accepted a glass of champagne from the smiling attendant. This time, I didn't need anyone's permission to enjoy the journey.